It is 2026, and I could not be more excited to be back with you on the Cash Flow Podcast. We're going to change things up this year because there's a bit of a story I want to tell you at the beginning, and then I want to talk about exactly what we're going to cover this forecast. And if you are a high seven, getting ready to move into eight-figure business, or you're in the eight figures and you're ready to scale up to the 40s, 50s, $60 million business, we're going to really talk about what that takes. And I'm going to go through today the arc of my business as an entrepreneur, kind of where I've landed. And I think you'll probably find, if you've been in it 7, 8, 9 years, that your business has been through not exactly the same arc, but probably similar type of fluctuations. Things you do wrong and learn from, things you do right and expand on, changes in what you as an entrepreneur really want to do and how you want to do it. So I want to walk through that, kind of what it's been for my business, but then talk to you about some things that apply to every entrepreneur who really gets to that point where they've decided they want to scale. And I've written a book about it. It's called Founder to Exit. But I know a lot of people don't like to read, and audiobooks, I know if I do an audiobook, I lose track of it and forget to make notes, or I try to make notes and realize I'm in the car. So I want to give you all something you can come back to and refer to as you hit the different sort of issues or problems that the folks I'm working with that are doing this kind of scaling run into. So let's kind of start first with the arc of my business. I started what I was doing in 2018, and I'm not telling you this to have you know more about me. I'm telling you this because I hope it resonates with you and you can see in your business the similar kind of movement. And when I started a course in the first year, it was 2018, I started at a loss. I was starting up. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was a little insecure about pricing. I had a few clients. I did right by them. But I also had a bunch of things I was doing that I didn't love doing. And I lost money that first year, which is not unusual. Then the second and third years, which were 19 and 20, I actually cleared a lot of money at the bottom line. Revenue wasn't huge, but it was growing. It was mid six figures at this point. And in that process, I had some great net income, but I was exhausted because I was doing everything. Everything was in my head. And I decided then, starting in that fourth year, and really 4, 5, and 6, that I was going to scale. I was going to get a few more CFOs. I was going to expand my bookkeeping team. I was going to take on many, many more clients, and I did. The client base went up like 400%. And it was great because I, made a ton of revenue then in those 4 years. But the interesting thing about those 4 years is the first 2 of them were not profitable at all, which makes sense because when you scale, as we're going to talk about, you need to put a little bit of infrastructure in place in order to do it successfully. So I went through a couple of years of losses and all the pains and aggravations, I guess, that you're going to have to go through if you're scaling a business from 7 to 8 figures or 8 and beyond. So then we had a couple of years where it was really kind of humming at the scaled level. But I realized, and this can happen too, I was still the main owner and active owner of the business and wasn't enjoying the work I was doing at that point. And I'm not going to say I wasn't enjoying it at all. I had certain things I really, really liked. And I didn't have as much time as I wanted doing those. And that had to do with interactions with clients. And I was running a team more than that. And I'm good at it. I love it. It's what I did in corporate. I love my team, absolutely. But it had gotten expanded and bigger than I really wanted to manage as a business leader anymore. So this past year, I did some kind of debriefing and thinking, and I decided, hey, you know what? It's time to make a choice. Do I, Pam Pryor, want to have a lifestyle business where I'm working with a few clients that I really love working with and not scaling to be the biggest, best accounting and bookkeeping firm out there? Or do I want to go ahead and scale and be the biggest and best accounting and bookkeeper out there? And knew, because I've advised many clients on this, that it's not a judgment thing, right? Neither one's right or wrong. But I realized what I wanted to do was really slim down the number of clients to the point where I could be the servicer for all of them. and still get service and bookkeeping and all of the things that a business needs from an accounting standpoint through outsourcing bookkeeping and tax accounting. So we can still offer it, but I don't have to be in the middle and on the lead of that work. I have some amazing partners who are totally capable of providing those services with absolute perfection, in my opinion, because I've worked with them for so long. I know that, and able to then outsource to them and work affiliate arrangements out in order to do that. So that's kind of how I'm heading into 2026, which is what's leading to this series that we're going to do now on the podcast for season 8. And season 8 is going to be for you if you are that founder who's ready to scale your business. You're at 7 figures, you're at low 8 figures, and you're like, okay, I love this. I want to scale this business, and I want to get to a point where either I can pass it on to my children, or I can sell it to my employees, or I can sell it to an outside buyer. That's not saying tomorrow you're going to do that, but be it 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road. And I want to benefit from the windfall that comes from having built that value. So many entrepreneurs I found don't realize that they don't only get the net income that they earn every year as they grow, but if they do it in the right way, and if they make sure that that business becomes something that's attractive to somebody else, at the end of all of that, there's a huge payout. And there are some very specific things that need to be done so that the entrepreneur can get that payout. So I really want to focus on that. And why do I feel that I'm really kind of the best person to do that? Francis, who's my production guy in the background, we need to get better terms than the guy in the background, the production man in the background, because I'll tell you, Francis and Wendy are the two that make this happen. And I couldn't do it without them. So I think kind of a la maybe Not Gonna Lie and New Heights, we're going to come up with names for them that are a little more interesting because they make this thing happen, quite honestly. I just sit here and talk. But back to my point. Francis asked a question and he said, what is it that these entrepreneurs really want that you provide? What is it that in the cases where you have these clients, which I do now, that they have a sweet spot that you, Pam Pryor, are perfect for? And if this sounds like you, I want to know, because I found this to be very typical across entrepreneurs who are ready to scale. You're at that point now where you're getting big enough that things are feeling like they're getting out of control. You're not completely in control of your money. You don't really sign all the checks anymore. You have a team that's doing things. And the biggest thing you want to know, without a doubt, is that your money is controlled, that nobody's running away with it. So I always go back to this story. Billy Joel, first of all, there's a great documentary series on Billy Joel. I think it's like 4 parts, I believe on Netflix, but if I'm wrong about that, Francis will put the right streaming thing, right, Francis, in the actual notes on the podcast. But Billy Joel got ripped off twice as he grew, as he got further and further away from the business because it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think every entrepreneur, whether they know the Billy Joel story or not, is really aware that, this can happen. People can run away with your money. So the entrepreneurs that I work with need to know unequivocally that their money is controlled and managed by people they trust. That if they're not writing the checks, the people that are writing the checks have all the controls in place to make sure money's not leaking out the door and they're not getting ripped off and they're not losing value in their business. And one example of this I'll tell you is one of my larger clients is the CEO and I have set it up so that there's dual control. So for example, I can bring this client complete comfort because in truth, no money can leave the door, period, unless both he and I approve it. Either he puts it in and I approve it, or I put it in and he approves it. And being able to do that and say that and have them know it lets them kind of relax a little bit and, okay, the control's in place. So that's the first thing they want. The second thing they want, and although it's the second thing, it's equally as important. They have this image now, which is correct, of money flying in and out of their accounts. And it usually is, right? They've grown big, money's starting to fly in and out. So not only do they want to know that it's controlled, but they want to understand it, right? How is this doing? If I'm earning, $40 million in revenue, what am I spending it on? Is my operation efficient? Have we got so many people who can have credit cards now that, we're spending money on stuff that I wouldn't choose to spend money on as the owner. And so what we do with that is have all sorts of things that we can put in place to make that happen. And here's where personality is so important. And I kind of handpick my clients, and my clients handpick me for a personality fit. And I think that's often overlooked. You think, I need a CFO. Well, that CFO needs to be somebody you know, trust, and can adapt to you. So as a CFO, I'm going to focus on all the controls and getting them in place, but at the same time, I'm focusing on how do you think about this business owner? What is it you need to see and understand in order to be able to make the decisions you want to make? I want to invest in more stuff. I want to cut back on expenses here. I want to redirect the strategy in this business. And the quandary here for the CFO, and the one that I love to kind of think through and overcome, it's my favorite puzzle, is how do I put all those controls in place, which does involve a lot of sausage making. Not have the owner feel that at all, right? Not that have them have to go through it painfully and understand detail for detail what I'm putting in place and all of these things as they start to put in benefits plans and 401ks and add more people in different states and add more accounts and start more businesses. They don't need to know all the aggravation and detail that's involved with that. So how do I get all that aggravation and detail handled as professionally and quickly and firmly as possible, but still get them the information they need as they need it? And a perfect example of this is if you own a business and you want to know if a business is profitable, you don't care about things like net to gross and gross margin versus profit margin and all of these things in the language that an accountant would talk about it. You want to know all those things in the language that you talk about it. So for example, one client might say, hey, I just want to know if I'm making this much money, how much am I paying my internal team that's not revenue generating? Okay, so we figure out how to get them the answer that way. And that's why it's so important that if you're in this position and you need financial control, which you do, if you're in this position, you absolutely need financial control. And if you've got, Aunt Mary who's been doing your books forever and is on QuickBooks Desktop and doesn't know accounting and never got an accounting degree or had experience as a controller or a CFO, you're in trouble. I hate to break it to you, but you're in trouble. You need a CFO at this point. But you don't just need a CFO, you need a CFO that you really jive with. So it's very important for me as I go through setting up clients in this particular kind of new model that I'm doing, that we have that rapport, that there's the full understanding of how this all works. So most of my business is by referral as a result of that, and building that trust over some period of time, usually because I know people for a while. And when they call and say, hey, I'm ready, it's not a sale for me. It's like, okay, great. We know how this works. So you do need a CFO if you're in this position. I've positioned my business to do this and do it with a personality that fits that of the business owner, which is why I myself have chosen to pivot to what I'll call a lifestyle business. To me, a lifestyle business is I don't want to grow huge and sell my business at some massive valuation. I want to spend my time now serving the clients that I want to serve. I have my investments elsewhere for making, big, huge money and giving me the returns that I'd get if I were scaling to sell. In this business, I want to be that CFO. I want to be that person that the entrepreneur gets to know, love, and trust to lead them through these next steps. Because the next steps are hard. And we're going to talk about them in this season. I'm going to walk through now sort of what the arc of this season's going to be. Because if you're in this situation, I want you to know what to look for, what to expect, and be ready for it. It's not an easy transition. In fact, moving from founder to a real live, large-scaled business owner is one of the hardest things you're ever going to do, because you're going to have to make some really, really tough decisions. And one of the other things I do with my clients is there are a lot of people who think they're ready to scale, and they'll reach out and ask for the help, and we'll have a chat, and sometimes even I'll start to work with them. But there comes a point in the business where my expertise is exactly what they've asked for, but they fight it because they still step back into that founder mode a little bit and don't stay squarely in the I'm doing this to scale mode. And the expression that I use often with them is, look, I'm not going to fight for your business harder than you are. You hired me because I know what you need to do to scale. And I'm going to tell you what you need to do to scale as it relates to finances and financial structure and infrastructure, which, by the way, often touches all the other processes in your business. So it touches the people that you've known for 37 years who've been with you and have served you loyally, but truthfully no longer serve your goals. It touches on the fact that you signed every check in the old days and you just can't do that anymore. It touches on a lot of hard things that I need to be able to work with you in a very gentle but firm way to help you get through those changes. So there's a psychology to the relationship that I think is really, really important that we have. So when I'm talking to potential clients, and the reason I have continued potential clients, frankly, is because they roll off because they do get to the point where they can sell their business and then have the lifestyle that they want after selling their business. So when I'm talking to newer clients, I really lay that out. This is what the relationship is going to be like. This is how we're going to have to do it. This is the kind of things we're going to need to attack. And I want to cover that for you this season. So whether it's me or whether it's somebody else, and understand how important it is for you to get the financial infrastructure in place for your business. So along those lines, what we're going to cover, I'm going to kind of look at my notes here because I've built out the arc of the season so that by the time we get to the last episode, you're fully understanding what it's going to take to move from that founder mode to I am a business owner who's scaling mode. And it involves so many things, but we want to talk about them in a way that makes sense in plain English, as I've always done. That's been my personality from the start, and we're going to keep that up. So the arc of this season really is going to be to talk about sort of the seduction the seduction of scaling your business, and the facts that's really what it is. It's a seduction, and you really need to sit down and think about whether or not you really want to do this, and with a good understanding of what it's going to take. Because if you do that, it'll make down the road a lot easier. If you don't, you can still do it. It just makes the road a little bumpier because stuff that you're not expecting happens. And so we're going to then kind of go into the uncommon reality where most founders kind of believe they've built this machine that makes money, and that it's going to go up the hill by itself because you've built it. And in truth, you as the founder are still doing everything. So it's more like a bicycle that you're powering up the mountain under your own power, right? And so we want to talk about how to turn that bicycle into an engine. And then there's the valuation wake-up call. I talked about this a little bit, but I'm going to expound on it. You're in a great spot if you're going to scale. And if you're going to scale the right way, you're going to build something that you can sell or give to your children with a lot of value, or sell to your employees, or whatever you want to do at the end of a period of time. And the fact that most founders are like, I don't want to talk about exit. I just started my business. I'm not dealing with those folks anymore. I'm dealing with the folks who get and understand that, yeah, we want to build profit every year to go into your pocket and either reinvest or invest in other things for yourself. And there's a big overlap now with tax planning and personal financial planning. And I get it. I want to do that the right way. And at the end of the day, have something of value that I can sell, which is going to get me a whole lot more money in a short period of time than running the business year to year. Okay, so that's the kind of the next thing we're going to touch. And the next thing I want to talk about is really the shift and the practical items that deal with the shift you need to make as the business owner to become a business owner instead of an entrepreneur. And I'll go into details on that, but there are a number of things, and most notably is that you kind of controlled everything yourself. And now you have to build a system that you can trust to control it for you. And that's a big part of what we do as a CFO for these scaling owners. And we also want to get the realities out there that control does cause a little bit of friction. Taking that control out of your hands, so you're not signing every check, you're not doing every sales bid, you're not doing every site visit, you're not managing every project, you're not picking and designing every t-shirt. All of that shift is very, very difficult. So it's helping people understand how to let go of that control themselves, but still have it replaced. And the other piece, the next piece that I want to discuss is the illusion of security and safety that founders have. And this is probably where I get the most pushback, and where that personality and that relationship where we can have a tough conversation, where I get to understand sort of the psychology of why a founder might not want to move off a particular blind spot, and also be able to influence them to understand why they need to move off that blind spot, and that it is a blind spot in the first place. I want to talk about what some of those blind spots are and ways that you can get through them that's a little less painful than just kind of ripping the Band-Aid off. So then we're going to talk about, finally sort of a wrap up to this first round of it is, what are some of the specifics we need to do? What are things you can do today, CFO or no CFO, to get yourself ready for being a successfully scaled business? So you're going to walk away from these next few episodes with a roadmap. A roadmap, number one, of how to find and work with the right CFO if that's what you need. But number two, just to take a few action steps by yourself of these really critical things that make your business what it needs to be so you can really successfully scale. You are probably right now, if you're the person that I'm targeting this podcast to, you are exhausted. You are the only one who can do things that need to happen in this business. And for example, and we're going to go into this detail in a future episode here, if you walked away for 2 weeks, what exactly would fall down? What would happen? And what we sometimes do is have somebody walk away for 2 weeks and really see what that is, because that's the only way we can make that make sense. And whatever it is that falls down or falls apart is exactly what you need to put a process in place for. So there's that exercise that we're going to jump into in a good bit of detail. And then ongoing, for the rest of the season, we'll do more and more specific examples like that. So you'll be able to have this teaching series, really, or conversation I'm having with you. I don't want to call it a teaching series, but this conversation in, I don't know how many episodes it's going to be, frankly, just starting out. Poor Francis asked me that at the beginning. I'm like, I don't know how many it's going to be. But I have the arc of the season. It's very much based on my book, Founder to Exit, which has some really good analogies in it for the stuff that you're dealing with. And I'm just going to do it here verbally on the podcast so that you can refer back to any particular issue you might be having as you're going through this. And the other thing you'll get for this is you may already have a CFO in place, and you can now know what it is you need to demand of them, what it is you need for them to be doing for you, so that you're ready to go, you're ready to scale, and you're ready to become a business owner instead of the grunt who's literally running every aspect of your business. So that's what we're going to be doing this season. I'm really, really glad you're here. I want this to be a conversation with you. So if you have questions that come up when you see this episode, drop them in YouTube, drop them in Spotify, Apple, wherever you're watching this thing. Drop comments. You can always DM me or look at my YouTube socials. I am Pam S. Pryor everywhere, and I'm sure that Francis will put that in the links down below. But if you've got some specific questions, if this is you, subscribe to this podcast, hang on to it. If you know somebody in this situation, share it with them. It's interesting to me because every time I have a client that I'm working with, I will very often get, oh my God, my cousin needs this, or my friend Joe needs this. Pass this up, pass this on, send them the link, subscribe to this. We are shifting our focus from my first book, which was called Your First CFO, where we really catered to businesses that were just starting up, to my passion, which is where I'm focusing my business now. And that passion is helping business owners who are ready to do this real scaling. It is fun for me. I make it as fun for the owners as I can, and we're going to make this part as fun as we can too. But the big driver here is to get information out to you on what you're about to face. So if 2026 is your year to scale, then I promise you 2026 is your year to watch this podcast. And if you got questions, drop them in there. I will answer anyone's questions right off the bat on a new or future episode. We may have an FAQ or an Ask Me Anything where we get these answers to you. I'm also going to do a couple interviews with entrepreneurs that I have worked with who are going through this struggle, or entrepreneurs who are thinking of working with us that are going through this struggle. So you'll get some insight from them and their perspective as well. But you can also know that I, as an entrepreneur, went through this struggle and had to deal with every single thing that I'm going to outline here for you. And I ultimately decided, no, I don't want to do that. I want to teach people how to do that. I don't necessarily want to scale my business. I want to be the one who's in the mix talking to you as you scale this business. And if I'm going to scale, I'd be getting other CFOs. And while I trust them, there are plenty of other good CFOs there, I'd miss out on the fun stuff. And I want to do the fun stuff with you. And I do this in a way that I've done every job since I started in a mailroom, God knows how many years ago. But I roll my sleeves up and I take the trash out with you just as quickly as I will go to a board meeting with you. And that's the kind of CFO you need. Somebody that can go from, as I call it, under the hood of a truck to the boardroom in the same day and have a good time, laugh about the things that need to be laughed about, because there's a lot of funny shit that happens when you start going through this, and get serious about the stuff we need to get serious about. So I hope you stay with me this season. I hope this has been useful to you to kind of get a footprint of what we're going to do. And I look forward to seeing you next week on Cash Flow. Remember, like and subscribe. We want to help as many of you as we can.